but it's based at Brighton Grammar School, which is where my role is. My role is similar to like a director of curriculum and assessment across ELC to VCE, so across the whole school. I'm focused mostly on the secondary part, but it does apply to our junior school as well. Yeah, great. So today's session, I'm just going to be talking about three sort of things. The implementation overview and sort of defining what I mean by science of learning in terms of like what I'm talking about when I parts that implementing, like books, etc., that we've used, and then just future thinking, like what we're working on at the moment. Just to start us off, I'd just like you to turn to someone near you and just describe to them, the person who has been working the longest, teaching the longest. I want you to describe a time where you've been frustrated when you've been trying to implement something. I'll just give you a minute to... You don't have to be frustrated. Maybe sometime you had a good experience as well. Is okay. Just another 20 seconds or so. Get those implementation frustrations out. I thought it was funny. All right. Thanks, everyone. So what I'm going to try and do is talk you through like ways that we've implemented aspects of science of learning, and maybe if you might be able to empathise with like stages of it, etc., or things that have been challenging, and like maybe I'm just going to share ways that we've got around like common issues. Yeah. So I would say I've been at my current school for 9 years. Over that time, we've gone from we're an all-boys school in the sort of Bayside region in Melbourne, and we've increased in terms of enrolments about 250 kids or so over that 9 years, and also we have our average ATAR has gone from about 82 to about 87-ish. So we had a lot of improvement over that time. It's sort of been a long journey, but along the way we've been implementing, I'd say, explicit teaching and things based in research for about 10 years. So we're further along than some schools in terms of like the time that we've spent on that journey. It's been, it's like this, progressing, but some ups and downs. So it might be different stages to different schools and have different things in place. So what I just want to frame it around is, normally when you do like a tech innovation comes in, like a technology one, they always describe like you have the innovators, then the early adopters, and you have like the major majority, the early majority, late majority, and then these like sort of standard laggards here are the people who take a long time. That's like how tech usually describes the groupings. And I just wanted to sort of group those people, similar with like bringing something into a school. I think I heard a school talking this morning, and they were sort of in this phase where they had a lot of innovators and stuff. And, you get like 20% of the staff kind of really on board, and there's pockets of good practice or things that you're trying to implement, and then getting that into the different phases. So I've sort of got the build interest and understanding in the keen people, and then really transferring that into developing knowledge and skills in the majority. Like, how do you do that? How do you go from just the keen, interested people to the majority, and then how do you bring up the tail? So I'm going to frame the steps around that. So I'm just going to go into that in a second. When I mean science of learning, I'm basically saying like the understanding and use of cognitive load theory and simple model of memory. I was saying in a previous session, Ollie Lovell works at our school, so we use his book and cognitive load quite a lot, so that helps as well. When I say, I mean like instructional practice as well, we use explicit instruction a lot. Rosenstein's came in after we brought in explicit instruction, but that's an example of a text we would use. And effective study, and I guess that also is in teaching practice, like encouraging students to retrieve regularly or in appropriately spaced gaps, etc. But this also leads really into our next project that we're working on at the moment. that's what I mean when I say things we've embedded, the kind of instructional practice, understanding of cognitive load and how memory works, and also effective study. So stages of implementation. So phase one, the building interest phase, which I find is probably like the most fun phase. Like you can really get a group of people who are super interested to work together. So the way we sort of built the interest initially was really through this optional reading group, PL readings. Like we send out we have a professional learning once a week, every Thursday morning, 8 till 9 a.m. That's our professional learning time. And there's also a reading sent out by one of the other associate heads of the Crowther Centre, Mark Dowley, which some people know as well. And it's like little nudges. It's actually surprising how much those little, he sends a little reading, just a short one in the email text, the body, or and attaches the full read. And it's amazing, the uptake of building some interest. I was talking to our head of junior school yesterday about reporting, and he quoted a reading from Mark 2 years ago about why he made this reporting change. It's that really sparked me. Then I had a big in-depth conversation. It can actually nudge people. Our headmaster is usually the first to respond to Mark, he always tells me. So it's he's really engaged as well with the readings. And then you get a lot of staff going to attend conferences, or you encourage them. This is how you build interest. Building interest is not too hard. I actually ran an optional reading group as well, which I heard discussed at Toowoomba as well. I used to run this to build the initial interest, and I put on food. It's a cheap PL, $60, put on some sushi, and imagine how many conferences people would have to go to get the same amount of learning and how much that would cost. Just put on a lunch. It's a way cheaper PL, it's more effective, and it doesn't take people away from their classes generally. So yeah, we read Ashman's, Greg's book. We also read Ollie's book, and we've read a few others over the journey as well. But they were our initial 2 reads, which were fun. That was fun, just going through the different sort of areas. It's a good read if you haven't seen it yet. Going into phase 2. So I know a lot of schools are in phase 1, sort of the building interest. They got the interest. Moving into phase 2, how do you do that? How do you get the majority on board? So the way this is getting them on the bus. We use that term a lot, that phrase. I really need to get those initial people facilitating discussions or encouraging others or helping others. That's a key to it. This is the leading teams model. So to represent that you've really got to get your middle leaders on board and those keen staff on board, because they're going to essentially do all the work. You can't have 5 people at the top of the school just trying to say stuff. You've got to get the middle leaders on board. So I ran a retreat with the heads of department. They report to me in my role. We went away for a couple of days, Friday, Saturday, and just did the hard yards of, really nutting down what is our purpose, this group. What are the mechanics we're going to work with, and how are the dynamics going to work, and how do we sort of then get genuine conversations and things happening. We put a clear vision and purpose down, and then we've been able to drive a lot of things from that. You wouldn't believe it on that retreat. Things came out of that retreat that I was not expecting, but just putting some time aside to really develop the middle leaders was a key part, a key lever, if you like. It was only 1 day of school, but it was for quite a few people, so it's moderately expensive to do. And one of the things they said, they want more readings. And I run retrieval practice in my meetings of the previous content. So we sometimes start the meeting with retrieval and a discussion of the reading, because that is literally what they have asked for. It's I'd done it a little bit every now and then. They're no, we need more of this. Don't let a couple of people get it off track too much. I know you keep it tight, but keep it tighter. It's really interesting when you ask a team what they want. They work as a high-performing team, and then it's come from them. They're really engaged. They're really on board. So we do I had a head of faculty meeting last night. We have a reading. At the moment, we're reading a management book, which is Good Boss, Bad Boss. But we changed the readings up. We've got a mix of readings for term 4, some different teaching and learning ones. The structured professional learning program is having that really focused. It does edge people over time. I'd say also consistency of the messaging. If you say science of learning is really important, explicit teaching is really important, but we're going to have this 2-hour random activity on something else, it doesn't really doesn't keep each staff day, you've got to have it as a main focus for quite a long time to really build the majority. Early adopters are easy, but building the majority, it's got to be consistent and over a long time. I would say our headmaster has had the same, like, his top 4 things for 3 years in each presentation he gives. Like, just remember, this is what we're doing. And, like, everything's anchored off that. And it's like staff development, academic engagement, science of learning, high performance. Lucky it's been live streamed, so if I didn't get that, he'd tell me off. So we ran a Step Lab conference as well. That's another way you get another 30 staff involved. Like, we've just had these events where you get large enough groups that can work together and keep there's actually Rebecca's there. That's, sorry, I didn't know you were coming to the session, but where we got Josh Goodridge and Peps McRae coming out and running our school as well with, like, I don't know, 100 and something teachers. Just like anything, you can go to a conference where you take a bunch of teachers. You've got to build some sort of staff efficacy together and get enough people on board. This is a key phase to really, and it took us probably, I'd say it's like 2 years, then 3 years of getting enough people on board to then move into the sort of last phase. So it's probably been a hard line focus for, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years. It was kind of soft at the start because the principal was also new at that time. And then we're going to bring up the tail. So I'd say just staff that aren't on the bus, you got that last, I'm sure you know, some people in that situation. So often, like, small, if you've got the heads of, I would say the key lever is getting these heads of department, heads of, like, whatever your structure is, getting them on board, really getting them buying in, putting the work in with them leads to them being able to run stuff with their own departments in smaller groups or talk to someone. You can't just go talking to a normal teacher, say you need to do this. You got to, like, get other people sidling up beside them and not actually encouraging them and nudging them along a little bit. Some people will, once you're really clear and they know they're part of the 15%, a lot of them will move on if they're not aligned in terms of values of the school. So that's that's good in terms of they're not happy that they won't. We've had that as well, where we had probably 10% staff turnover for 3 years in a row, which may be high or low for your school, and now it's sort of dropped down to about 5% in more recent years because it's like less. People who are unaligned were moving out, and then we got more people obviously into the school, but we were super explicit during recruitment. So we say it. We're like, this is how we teach. This is, in our maths interviews, we bring a planner. It's like, this is a planner. This is how we teach together as a team. Lesson 1, we would do this. Lesson 2, we would do this. Like, there's some freedom. Here's the level of freedom. It's just like, you might want to use this resource, etc. But we've got set work examples, etc. for some things. Some are a little bit freer, if you like. But we're very clear that we're about explicit instruction. It's a knowledge-rich curriculum. So if that doesn't suit you, you shouldn't come work with us. Like, we would prefer people opt out early. I see an interview as both an opt-in, like we want to see if we want them, and we definitely want them to see if they want to come and work for us. Because we don't want unaligned, we don't want to bring in unaligned staff. So anyway, you can also highlight, we've had this a bit, so our maths faculty is very, very strong. It was probably our worst performing faculty 6 or 7 years ago. And now it's comfortably been our highest performing faculty for like 3 or 4 years in a row in terms of like study scores and performance on NAPLAN. And you can look at our publicly available like numeracy scores, they're extremely high. But it's like the retrieval practice we've brought in with them, the amount of like test anxiety we've tried to remove by having just the lowest stake quizzes, as frequent as you can possibly think of having them. It's like once a week there's a quiz. It's so low stakes. You just go through it. They can self-mark. It's like, yep, great. We're just doing a quiz. Just getting that really comfortable and less anxious. Like for anyone from Victoria? Nope, great. Math methods is like the middle stream of maths, like the real grunge maths. It's like kids always try. They're optimistic about doing it. Yeah, and they. It's a real like workhorse math. Like kids want to do something. It's like a prerequisite for everything. And we've been able to get like I don't know, study scores won't make much sense, but we've been able to like be one of the top performing schools in that area just through kids they'll do 40 practice exams. They're like an hour and a half. They'll do like 40. They'll just get used to it. Each morning they'll just wake up and do it. So when they get to the exam, it's just like. It's just another day. It's just like I'll sit in the hall again. I'm really familiar. No test anxiety. but also I've retrieved that information. I'm so fluent with it because I've just retrieved it so many times. We start our retrieval really early in the year with the Year 12 teachers, and we have Year 12 teacher meetings where we talk about specifically what we're doing and when we're retrieving and all sorts of aspects to get people to share. So that's where I say, like, highlighting this, I've been able to leverage that. Maths has had good results. Everyone can see maths had good results. The headmaster talks about it, and then I can say this, and then I can get someone from maths to talk about their practice. It's like, here you go. This is something we can do, and now it's very common now, even in humanities and other areas, they're doing it themselves. They're talking about how they're going to retrieve key knowledge, how they're building fluency, etc. And you can you can't say, oh, I think you should do this. It's like, if you can highlight something else, that really helps. Now I just wanted to talk you through sort of like with these stages as well, I'd say I'll show you a worked example. So the thing we're working on at the moment is this program we're bringing you next year, the Effective Learner Program. Ollie Lovell and I are working on it mostly. We've had a meeting last night at 8 p.m. to meet his supervisor to talk about it. So it's like then a 4 a.m. flight. 4 a.m. get up, come here. So we're really delving into this at the moment, but we're getting into the research around what makes an effective learner. Currently, we're looking at all the research in organisation because that's our term 1 material, but we've carved out an area in the timetable which is 50 minutes a week for the whole secondary school. It used to be pastoral house time, and the Director of Students and I actually did a joint proposal to the Senior Exec around changing that and giving it some real content, because all the wellbeing content had gone to health, wellbeing, PE anyway. So it's like this unstructured program. Let's bring some structure. Let's give it some real oomph and work together on it. And so that's where we're sort of going at the moment. We're trying to develop effective learners. We're trying to teach them how to study effectively. And we're currently looking at how we use like cueing and I guess how to develop a habit as like a leverage to then build this with boys. Boys don't just you can't just say, here's the research. You're kind of like get them into the habit, like once a week, they get out their diary, they literally write it, get organized, like what equipment do you need to bring, like really specific, giving them lots of chances to practice. So we're essentially going to have like an I do, explicit teaching of either Ollie or I doing a video, like a recorded video, but presented to like 3 little clips of explanation, and then going to a we do where they try and do a planner together, and then there's eventually removing the scaffold over a term in that particular practice. So each Tuesday they meet. It's like, okay, now it's your turn. Now I want you to set it up without any structure from me by the end of the term. So slowly removing that scaffolding. So we're trying, that's what we're currently developing. We're doing a piece of research as part of it. Yeah, so I just wanted to show you, the reason I say that's the next phase, but I wanted to show you an example of a session we would run and how to bring staff along. I ran this like 2 Thursdays ago. So this is I wanted to point out some key features of what I think you could consider when trying to get the majority, that middle phase. So I framed it with where are we at? Framing the session's really important. So this is with the staff. So this is literally the slides I used with the staff. Where are we at? So you'll remember last year, you guys did a survey and you gave us your input on what an effective learner, what their practices are, what are the things you'd be looking for in a student that have effective practice. Then we sort of thematically organised those. Then we got you guys to construct the success criteria for organisation, for focus, for summarising, for the 4 things, exam preparation. Then we had this professional learning where you gave feedback on the constructed success criteria. And now today's session, this is recently, today's session is going to be feedback on the design. This is how we're planning on designing the sessions. So that keying in that the staff have been part of the process is just so vital to implementation of anything. But I would say it's really vital when you're trying to change their knowledge base, change their practice, or bring them along. This is me just telling you again. And last time when you filled out that feedback, I asked you which one of these you think should be the focus of term 1. You said organisation, so that's why now organisation is in term 1. Getting staff action feedback, yep, here it is, you told us this is the feedback. We're bringing the whole body along, the whole body of the staff along, right? Thank you. I asked you to be hard. We have learning behaviours that are associated with organisations, focus in class, etc. The staff do once a term. I asked you to be a little bit harsher with those. I asked them to be a little bit harsher, and I said, this is outstanding. Look, thank you. I appreciate it. These are new for us. So like, I appreciate you marking a little bit harsher this term. That's what we've asked you to do. It really helps with the heads of house and the pastoral program so they can follow up and actually track below standard behavior and follow that, etc. This is the kind of bringing the staff along. Thank you. This is your feedback. We've actioned it. Like all of that framing for a session is vital for bringing the majority along with you. This is the corny one. It's like, this is the design team, but really we're all part of one team, like Team BGS. It's like a team, come on. Sometimes we use BGS United, we had a little banner. It's like, come on, we're part of the team, come along with me. And here's the yeah, I know, I don't know. And then I said, here's the structure we're thinking of, what do you think? We've got a little, we had a little QR code, or I've emailed you the code. Can you give us feedback again? So it's like we have one more session in term 4 where we'll present what we're thinking for term 1 next year. So turn and talk. What did you like from that kind of process of if you're running a PL session and bringing staff along, trying to implement something, what could you take for something you've tried to implement? You were frustrated about something, hopefully earlier. Is there anything you could take from that to have maybe overcome that frustration and brought a few more staff along? I'll give you a couple of minutes to talk. Any frustrations?
Well, I'm a full-time teacher, so I don't really have any power to implement anything. So I'm just gonna let the team.
Are you all? Oh, okay.
You guys aren't. Surely we're.
Have you brought like a team?
Yes, we're part of a team.
Yeah, I mean, like if you brought like something, try to bring something in for a team, or like if.
I just feel very powerless. I don't know. But I do like my head of department. So I'm starting to have a good relationship with her. But yeah, I might defer.
Have you tried to implement something?
Headhunted for a high-paying job.
Me?
In the business world?
No. Not in business. Do you guys have any frustrations?
Actually just saying that, with PD, most people, because it's a one-off and it's never actually practically placed, whereas you obviously have clearly thought about it, and it's something that's long-term, not just a day thing. It's like, this is what we're doing long-term, and this is what we're
and it's related to those 4 things that we talked. Like this program is built around. It's like there's 4 exec principles. One of them's academic engagement. It's the first amongst equals. It's like. Literally, that came in 2 years ago, so we're like, okay, we'll design a program that addresses that. Here's the program. We've been practicing behaviour management to improve student behaviour. We have a program. We're gonna try and teach kids to focus. I don't know how dubious it's going to be, but that bit will be the hardest of the 4 things we're trying to do. But literally have expectations of a year 7 should be able to focus for 15 minutes straight, and in the sessions they can actually practice. Okay, guys. I've taught you this, now the next session is you're going to practice 15 minutes, literally silence, just studying, you're going to practice focusing and see that you can do it.
But as a manager, you've obviously focused as well, because I feel over the years, we've tried to implement too many things, not given a chance.
Way too many things, yeah. And I think the way our head of secondary described, because we had some slight tweaks, he decided it's a evolution, not a revolution. It's always everything we do builds on the previous thing, and even the exec principles only got tweaked slightly. They've only changed 5% over 8 years. We've moved along the milestones, so it's still within this banner of staff development. Now we're working on just the next phase. Everyone's up. The instructional level's way up in terms of the teachers. So now we can focus on entry routine, whatever it is. It's yeah.
You're actually using it as a long-term.
Oh. Yeah. Hey.
You know this thing about the behaviours you want to see for attention and stuff like that. Do they mainly focus on teacher action or student?
Student action. They're student actions, yeah. The teacher judgment of a student action.
Right.
So at standard is paying attention for 90% of the lesson, or being actively engaged with the thing you're supposed to be doing for 90% of the lesson.
At what point do you go, that's the kind of there's a responsibility on the part of the teacher to make that happen, like that you transfer the focus from student to teacher? Like when does that kick in?
Yeah, or we would always say it's like we have a lot on like fluent corrections. So I guess we'd say the first point of call is always like using fluent corrections to bring up their behaviour. But if let's say if it's in one class, okay, we think that's an issue with that class. Or it might be an issue with the teacher, or it might be an issue with that student and that teacher's relationship. But more if we're seeing it across 6 classes, then you go, it's not the teacher, like it's not a teacher-student problem, it's a student issue in terms of them not being up to standard or not showing appropriate behaviours. Yeah. So it would depend. If we had one versus multiple classes, you get different sort of analysis.
And I guess you probably actually articulated a lot of the behaviour expectations with staff anyway. Do you know what I mean?
We've got a guide.
Yeah,
It's like fully like engaged 80%, doesn't call, so below standards like calls out once or more during a lesson, calls out more than once is like well below standard.
Did you get data on that through observations as well?
No, but now we are, because like we brought it in before we were doing anything to do with this. It was, we'd always planned to change them to be more what we thought good learning was, but we're also going to add some.
Like you could have a control school where they're like, okay, this is a baseline, same exam.
We are using it as part of we've got about 8 different metrics we're trying to use. That's why we're meeting with Tino last night with Ollie, like what are the metrics we're going to use, what's the experimental variation, which are the groups. Like I've got the planned sessions for next year, like when every single session is happening for next year, and we're just trying to like match up what we can do to do experimental groups.
Tim would be good for that too. Tim would be a good person.
Yeah.
Because he'd know what the normal metrics are in the research, so if it's going to align, there might even be a tool out there already.
That's what I was wondering. When you said the well-being outcomes, I'm like, oh, we were talking about well-being outcomes last night. I'm like, do we need? Yeah, I know. I'm like, do I need to get some of them?
Are you developing your own metrics?
We were. No, we were using our own. Yeah, I know.
Something standardized.
Okay, I will be emailing you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. I'll just bring it back together. Can I have any thoughts? Anyone like any part or think there's something that could apply to their situation? Or do you want to share a frustration that you've had?
I've got a question.
Oh, please. Oh, yeah, or question.
The responses. When you survey all the staff, are you self-selecting for people who are motivated to respond in a way, but then you get a good outcome, and all the people who didn't respond, you don't know that there weren't like 40% of people who didn't respond. They might think they're the only one in the whole staff being consulted. So it's like a good angle, because you're only going to get people respond really who are already on the bus. Is that the case?
It's a good question. But I would say they're in the session, they're there, they've got their laptop open, they're literally next to other people who can see them filling out the form, and 3 of us are circulating around. They're round tables with a big hall, so like we can circulate. There's also their head of faculty might be next to them, and then another. Like we've got enough people on board that if you were being actively disengaged, right, like you were thinking for a student, then it would show up like a sort of. There's probably I could think of 2 or 3 staff where I'd be like, I probably need to have a conversation with them about being actively disengaged. That's out of like 110 teachers. Yeah, so there's such a majority on board that it's not really and we did things like for that program, we always do consultation. There's so much consultation. We got all the heads of house and all the heads of faculty together at the end of last term to present a proposed structure to them before the staff body, and to like get them on board, get their feedback, modify before we even brought it to the staff body. So it's like 40 staff we did consultation groups, round tables, had one of the secondary leadership team on each team doing note-taking, running the group. It's like a lot of as much consultation as possible, because it doesn't matter how good the program is or what you bring in. Like if you haven't consulted and you haven't brought them along, it's just going to flop. So, yeah. If we do a lot of different things, but always happy to touch base with anyone. You can contact me on LinkedIn as well, but I work at the